This is for women who have been holding everything together and quietly wondering when it became this heavy. I was at the pharmacy counter when the woman next to me, maybe 70, dressed beautifully, pulled out 3 different discount cards trying to afford her prescriptions. The pharmacist kept scanning them. None worked. She just stood there, deciding which medications she could live without that month. I pretended not to notice, but I couldn't stop thinking about it for days. Because here's what nobody tells you about getting older as a woman in America. You might spend your whole life doing everything right, and still end up choosing between pills and groceries. Research shows that older women applying for jobs face discrimination rates up to 47% higher than younger women. Bureau of Labor Statistics Gender Action Portal. And that's just the part we can measure. A 2021 AARP survey found that 78% of workers over 40 have witnessed or experienced age discrimination built in. But the NHL numbers don't capture what it actually feels like. I know a woman named Sharon, 58, worked in marketing for 22 years, got laid off during what they called company restructuring. She sent out over 200 applications in 6 months. Studies show older women need to submit about 23 job applications on average to get 1 interview, compared to 16 for younger women. Gender Action Portal. Sharon told me about one phone interview where everything went perfectly. They loved her ideas, her experience. Then they asked for a video call. She never heard back. I could hear it in the silence. She said, the moment they saw my face, they'd already decided. She's working part-time at Target now. No health insurance. Her 401k from her old job keeps shrinking because she had to pull from it to pay rent. This is what we don't talk about. Not the inspiring stories of women who reinvented themselves at 60, but the women who did everything society told them to do, worked hard, saved when they could, raised families, and still ended up terrified. Nearly half of working women report that menopause symptoms have affected their job performance. Fortune. Think about that. Your body starts doing things you can't control. Hot flashes in the middle of presentations. Brain fog that makes you forget words you've used your entire career. Exhaustion that sleep doesn't touch. And instead of getting support, 48% of women believe they're seen as less productive or emotionally stable. Fortune, when they're going through this universal biological process. What happened next for Sharon surprised me. She stopped trying to hide her age on applications. Stopped dyeing her gray hair. Not because she'd found some Zen acceptance, but because she was exhausted from performing an impossible standard. If they're going to discriminate, they'll find a way anyway, she said. At least this way, I'm not spending money I don't have pretending to be someone I'm not. 3 months later, she got hired at a small nonprofit. They specifically wanted someone with decades of real-world experience. The pay isn't great, but they have insurance. She cried when she got the offer. Here's a statistic that should make you furious. Women over 65 are 80% more likely than men to live in poverty. Economic Policy Institute of Visual. Not a little more likely, 80%. And it gets worse as women age. Among women 80 and older, 22% live in poverty, compared to 17% of men the same age. Economic Policy Institute. These aren't women who made bad choices. The gender gap exists because women earn less throughout their lives. Pension income for women averages 33% less than men's. National Institute on Retirement Security. And because we take time out of our careers for caregiving, which means smaller social security checks later. I met Teresa at a community center. She's 73, widowed for 8 years. Her husband had been the primary earner when he died. Her household income dropped by more than half. She told me something I can't stop thinking about. I thought I'd spend my 70s traveling, maybe taking art classes. Instead, I spend them figuring out which bills I can pay late without losing service. A Mayo Clinic study found that menopause costs the U.S. economy $26.6 billion annually in lost work time and medical expenses time. But here's what that number doesn't show. It's individual women absorbing those costs. Women missing work because they're up all night with hot flashes. Nearly 11% of women report missing work in the past year due to menopause symptoms. Time, women using up sick days and vacation. Time to deal with a natural biological process that medicine barely acknowledges. Workplace studies. The most common symptoms affecting women at work were fatigue, reported by 54% of participants, difficulty sleeping at 47%, and poor concentration and memory, PubMed Central. Imagine trying to compete for promotions, prove your value, stay relevant in your field, while your body is actively working against you and nobody wants to talk about it. But something shifted when Teresa joined a support group for widows, not a therapy group, not some spiritual healing circle. Just 8 women who met every other Tuesday at the library to talk about the practical realities of suddenly having half the income they'd planned for. They shared information: which grocery stores had the best senior discounts, how to appeal Medicare decisions, which part-time jobs actually paid a living wage, and which ones were exploitative. We became experts in survival, Teresa said, and that felt better than being victims. One woman in the group figured out she could rent out a room in her house. Another started a small consulting business from home. Teresa herself began doing bookkeeping for local small businesses. None of them got rich, but they stopped feeling quite so powerless. The hardest part wasn't learning new skills, Teresa told me. It was unlearning the shame. We'd been taught that needing help at our age meant we'd failed somehow. Once we let that go, we could actually help each other. 3 out of 4 women report having no workplace accommodations for menopause. Fortune. Think about what that means. A biological process affecting millions of working women, and most workplaces act like it doesn't exist. Meanwhile, 42% of women say menopause symptoms have limited their career ambitions. Fortune. Women at the peak of their careers with decades of expertise. Institutional knowledge. Leadership potential are being pushed out, or pushing themselves out, because their bodies are changing and nobody wants to acknowledge it. I talked to a woman named Angela. She's 54, works in finance, and she told me about the day she had a severe hot flash during a board meeting. I was mid-sentence, presenting quarterly numbers I knew backwards and forwards, she said. And suddenly I couldn't remember what I was saying. My face was bright red, I was sweating through my blazer, and I could see everyone looking uncomfortable. She excused herself, went to the bathroom, sat in a stall trying to cool down and trying not to cry. I thought, this is it. This is how my career ends. Not because I'm not good at my job, but because my body decided to betray me at the worst possible moment. But here's what happened. One of the other women from the meeting followed her to the bathroom. Someone Angela barely knew. This woman was maybe 10 years older. She didn't offer platitudes. She handed Angela a small portable fan and said, "Keep this in your bag, and there's a doctor I can recommend who actually listens." That small moment, someone acknowledging the reality, instead of pretending it wasn't happening, changed something for Angela. She started being honest about what she was dealing with, not making it her whole personality, but not hiding it either. When she needed to step out of a meeting to cool down, she did. When she needed flexible hours some days, she asked for them, and the world didn't end. Women who become widowed face particularly severe financial impacts, often seeing their Social Security benefits drop by 33 to 50% after a spouse's death. Economic Policy Institute, the White House. That reality haunts women who've built their lives as part of a partnership, only to discover the system penalizes them for it. But some women are finding ways to prepare differently. They're having harder conversations earlier about finances, about career gaps, about what happens if one partner dies or they divorce after 40 years. It's not romantic, but neither is poverty at 75. I asked Teresa what she'd tell her younger self. She thought for a long time. I'd say, every financial decision you make, assuming you'll always be part of a couple, is a risk. Have your own credit. Have your own retirement account. Know where all the money is and how everything works. Not because you don't trust your partner, but because life is unpredictable, and the system is unset up to catch you when you fall. Social Security lifts 9.4 million older women above the poverty line. Center on budget and policy priorities, which means without it, millions more would be destitute. It's the difference between survival and catastrophe for so many. This isn't the story we're told to tell about aging. There's no neat resolution here, no moment where everything works out. But there's something else, something quieter but more real. It's women sharing information that could save each other thousands of dollars. It's someone handing you a fan in a bathroom. It's 8 widows meeting at a library, refusing to be ashamed. It's recognizing that the system isn't designed for us, but we can still design small systems for each other. The numbers are stark and real. The discrimination, the poverty rates, the lack of support. But so is this. Every woman who refuses to disappear quietly, who shares what she knows, who asks for what she needs, who builds networks of mutual aid with other women. She's changing those numbers. One small, practical act at a time. And maybe that's not nothing. Maybe that's how we survive what was never designed for our survival.